We will now begin the second day of the City of Boynton Beach Budget Workshop today, Tuesday, July 17th at 12:02 p.m. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call, please? Here. Here. All right. Does anyone from the commission have any informational items they'd like to say? Seeing none?
Well, I have one. I'd like to tell Lori thank you for the information that you got for me. I have not had time to look over it, but once I glanced at it, it's really not telling me what I needed to know. I'm sorry. You and I have to meet one-on-one.
May we sit? Yes, sir. That's what I was asking. Let's sit down and then I can get a little bit better idea.
I'm not satisfied with this.
We put together what we could, probably 5 or 6 of the items of the list I had. So excuse the Post-it notes and paperclip, but that was the best I could do in the short time. But we'll continue to gather the rest of the information. I'll forward it on to you via email.
Any other comments? See none? Andrew, would you like to begin? Sure.
Okay. The solid waste fund. So this year we were proposing a 3.8% increase, and I'll go through the highlighted changes. The first increase was there was an increase in employee benefit costs, pension, health insurance, so that was an increase to the fund. We are also proposing the hiring of 2 new heavy equipment operators. That was another increase. We also are projecting an increase in the waste disposal fees. We also are requesting an increase in carts and container replacements. Our vehicle service costs have also increased based on cost of materials and inflation, and we've included, we're carrying the same number, or actually it'll be up $100,000 for other contractual based on expected costs for the landfill closure. Some of the successes that we've had this year, we recently just deployed a online payment portal for our customers, which is a long time in the making, but we're glad to have it and thank the ITS and finance department for making that happen. Some of the challenges we're having obviously is truck equipment failure. We increased the life expectancy back when the budget was tight, and we're still feeling the effects of that. As well as staffing. We do get quite a bit of call-outs, and FMLA has caused some issues with us in making sure that we're getting all of our equipment manned. Another item that we have a difficulty with is our fee and payment structure for roll-off services. This is something that I'm looking to tackle in the next few months to bring to resolve. Basically, the way we collect the fees is not desirable. It gives an opportunity for people that may not pay an invoice because we pay in arrears. So we're going to change it to where we're paying up front. So that's something that we'll be tackling here very shortly. Obviously, illegal dumping and litter is a big concern that we have. The solid waste crews, they're out to collect the trash, and if they get called off a route, this keeps them from picking up the residential, the designed routes. And then the final item is the solid waste reserve balance. This is something that I'd like to talk to you about in a future upcoming meeting as well. Some of the initiatives we spoke about yesterday, the solid waste routeware system. That'll be the AVL on the trucks, which give us real-time information on all the trucks, the status, the speeds, a lot of the information that's available through the system. And then the last thing is we're rebranding the solid waste vehicles. And this is just a little snippet of a picture of what we're going to do. This is our baby truck, our small rear load truck that we use in the tight neighborhoods. So we would be putting the blue Sailfish logo on the white truck. The white background wouldn't be there. That's just a part of the logo, but it would be actually on the truck itself. So with that, I open up for questions. Sure.
Go back to, slide 1, please. Okay, implementation. Go back right there. Implementation of online payment, portal for customer payments. What type of payments are you all receiving? I'm just saying, what
So-
values are you looking for?
So we get roll-off payments. That's the majority of the customers that we get. So a lot of the customers, we remit them an invoice and they pay through the mail. They either mail it through a check or they could come to the cashier downstairs at City Hall and pay. So now this is a way for them not to have to come into our office, and they'll be able to pay online.
Another question is, you said that you have not been able to collect a lot of fees. What was the problem? I'm just saying.
So on the roll-offs, the way they do it is they drop off a container and it's billed in the rears. So there's times where we've delivered 4 or 5 containers and in a month, because we bill on a monthly basis, and some of those bills don't get paid. We have people that obviously don't pay their bills. So we're looking to change the business model. It's something that I've identified very early on, and we're going to change the business model so that we're collecting the fees up front prior to issuing a roll-off container. So we'll be collecting that fee right away.
All right, how much money would you say that we lost this fiscal year by not collecting payments?
Is this fiscal year, I don't have the number. Over the last 5 fiscal years, I think the number was around $100,000 that we have in bad debt right now that we're still actively trying to collect.
Thank you.
Andrew, we drop these containers off. Are they the responsibility of the property owner or the people who are probably, storefront or a restaurant? Who's responsible for that payment?
Well, that's one of the issues that we have is a contractor could be working on a property for an owner on their behalf. So the contractor sets up the account, or sometimes it's the owner. So it varies, depends on who it is.
Could it be a possibility that wherever the dumpster is located or dumped off, that the property owner or the owner of that property is responsible and some type of a lien be placed against the property for non-payment?
It's possible if they were the one that ordered it, if it was a contractor or something that, let's say that you ordered it and you paid your contractor the $400 for a roll-off, and he decided not to pay the bill, we can't go after the owner.
Well, it would be up to the onus of the owner of the property to
Yeah.
go after his contractor and say,
Yeah.
pay the bill, because I'm going to get a
Right
lien
now,
on the property, no?
right now our ordinance doesn't allow for a lien. That's why we're changing it. And most of the private carriers are set up this way, where it's electronically, where you order a roll-off, as soon as it hits the ground, they charge you set up an online account, and they charge your fee right away. So this is something that we're going to be doing, like I said, really quickly.
That doesn't guarantee payment. You
Yes.
send them all the bills immediately.
No, it guarantees payment. It's an auto draft right out of their account.
Okay,
So in
autograph.
order to get it, yeah. And when I say, we don't let people get too far out in advance of us right now. So if there was, if you haven't paid your monthly bill, you don't get another one on the next go-around. So it'd be only 1 month right now that we're in the rears.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about yesterday about that logo that we're going to be putting on some of the trucks and stuff. And we talked about possibly wrapping some of the trucks with some of the advertisement for Boynton Beach, the amenities Boynton Beach, whether it be the marina, the golf course, the beach, or whatever. Is that something we're still going to be exploring on our trucks?
Yeah, definitely. We'll look at it. Some of the trucks may be better suited for it. Obviously, when you wouldn't want to put that on a truck that's doing vegetation with the branches and stuff hidden. But yeah, absolutely. We'll look into advertising and marketing the city. That's something that I'll work in Eleanor's spare time on. So.
She has a lot of that. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew, what are we doing to ensure that business owners are, when they put out the dumpsters or if they put it in a place that's visible to the public, for example, along Federal Highway or something, that they're either covering it or putting it back in a place that's not visible or just a terrible point of view for other people or for the public?
So we have been meeting with the Community Standards Department, and there are eyes and ears in the field, and as well as our supervisors are out in the field as well. We're getting ready to roll out. We've already sent some notices in the I believe it's in the utility bill that was going out about pickups and when you can put it out and when it's over. And what we'll do is we'll start actually giving courtesy notices to people that put stuff out and let them know that you're in violation, that you need to remove it or take it back. And after that, we'll go to a fine. And that's what we'll end up doing. We'll also start rolling out some meetings in the neighborhoods. Like to have the managers start meeting with the HOAs when we can, piggyback on any other meetings that the manager or maybe the police department has where we could piggyback and talk to them about their waste pickup as well.
Also, what's the status on, I believe it's the Pelican, if I'm not sure of the correct, those apartments that are there by the Forest Park neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
How have they been doing with maintaining their dumpsters and being friendly neighbors to the adjoining residential neighborhoods?
I think the situation you're talking about, Pelican Point, the area that I know that we had a dumpster that was right adjacent to a property.
Yes.
I believe they moved it away from that property, and I haven't heard anything that's been calls coming in. But obviously, anywhere we have a dumpster that's not in an enclosure or out, a lot of people are unfortunately lazy, or they like to do illegal dumping right around the dumpster. So I haven't heard anything lately to that effect, but I can definitely look into it.
Okay, and have we considered possibly moving towards the next step of creating an ordinance or creating certain policies which address those dumpsters that are freestanding, that don't have an enclosure or have some way to prevent the illegal dumping? That tends to be an issue.
As far as making somebody retrofit their property?
Right, are we addressing it or are we just kind of letting it?
Right now, we don't have anything, I haven't had any direction as far as writing an ordinance to retrofit. Plus, it is very difficult to retrofit these very tight properties because obviously getting a solid waste truck into a property, we need to have, you could lose property as well. So, I mean, that's something that we can look into. We do have quite a few places that are grandfathered in that are allowed to have their dumpsters out without having, and they're mostly in the downtown area or east of 95 in the older neighborhoods. Just because back then, I guess, they were able to do it. And if we do it now, it would be difficult. We'd be losing property, plus access is always difficult, trying to get the truck to maneuver in those tight spaces. So, but it's something that we can look at. I mean, we do have the option of doing, if it's an appearance thing of the can, there's some upgraded, we did some public art style cans. I think you've seen them around. We could do something like that, offer that service. As far as the illegal dumping, that's just going to be an ongoing problem that we're dealing with in society. But we're working on it. Education of customers is going to be the key to make sure that we're meeting with the customers, explaining them, that they, where to dump. I do have some ideas also about doing some temporary stations where people can come and actually do roll-offs. So like have a kind of like what we do with Tire Amnesty Week, do some roll-offs in certain locations of the city so that if somebody has some yards that they want to waste, they could go there and dump it instead of just dumping it on an alley. So kind of like a centralized area where someone could dump it and we would have the roll-off and not charge.
I'd like to hear more about those ideas in the near future, because
Okay.
I struggle with the fact that we're going to be spending $100 million to recreate our downtown, but illegal dumping is something that we're kind of just thinking it's just going to be an ongoing problem. I don't want that to be something that we can't resolve or that we don't have a plan to resolve in the near future. So I'd like to hear more of those ideas and how we work on that in the future. Thank you.
Just also, we have in the budget, as a part of the budget, I think the CRA funds is, we have a vendor that does pick up trash that goes around the city. It's just, obviously it's not enough to cover the entire city 5 days a week. But we do have a vendor that goes out and we do call them when we have certain situations, as well as solid waste staff. If we have an area that's a problem, we'll go out and pick it up and not let it stay on the ground. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Really, I'm not in favor of putting a roll-off or whatever you call it where somebody can go and just dump stuff, because you've got people who's doing lawn maintenance and stuff, and they bring enough stuff in the city of Boynton and illegally dump it. Okay, and then you're going to have them coming from every place else saying, oh, I know a spot. When they've been paid to go to solid waste and get rid of the stuff, they're putting money in their pocket, and then we're being, the keeper of what we don't need. I'm not in favor of that.
Sure, absolutely.
Andrew, these roll-off dumpsters, are they picked up on a scheduled basis or is it on will or on call?
Roll-offs are basically, once it's full, the customer has to call us and tell us that they want it pulled. So we don't automatically assume that they're going to pull it. Something that I am looking at doing is doing a rental fee, because we do have some people that'll get a dumpster that'll sit on a lot that isn't being utilized, where they're waiting, they're throwing one thing in there at a time, and they could have it for more than 30 days. So we're looking at doing a base rental fee as a part of that. But typically, it's the customer that would call us to pull the dumpster when it's full.
And that's some of the issue, because a few times I've gone to the city manager and called her and said, driving by establishments and seeing the overflow of the dumpster, which pollutes the whole area, really.
Yeah.
So, have we ever prosecuted or for illegal dumping? Have we ever? I know on Minor Road in District 4 there, it's a great place to drive in the middle of the night. It's not lighted. A lot of illegal dumping goes up there. You guys have been great about as far as picking up, whatever can dump. But is there some type of a camera system or something that we can catch these violators of illegal dumping?
Well, I've had that conversation with community standards and some of our staff, and honestly, the best way to do it is actually to get in the pile and try and find some documentation of where the illegal waste came from. So that's actually the most effective way. And surprisingly, they will retrieve people's information, and then we try to go after them to make sure they get it up, or whatever remedies we have in our code.
So I was looking at the fees. Our biggest fees for solid waste is the waste disposal. I actually was able to take a tour for the Solid Waste Authority. What is the solid waste that we give to waste management?
The what?
So waste management is $410,000 that we pay for it. And so I want to know, is that different than the trash that we send to the Solid Waste Authority? Because I'm thinking waste management is the company. It's item 3462.
Where you could put it up on that screen so everybody could see it? Hello?
Yeah. I'd actually have to see what the difference between the two are and get back to you on that.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. The other thing is, I see that there's a 10.4% transfer to the general fund. Do you plan on seeing that increase or decrease over the years, or is that going to stay the same?
The transfer now is set by the manager.
Yeah, we've reduced it substantially over the past many years. The fund can't handle it anymore.
Okay.
We've always been able to transfer $1 or $2 million a year, but right now we're reducing that.
Okay. And so, and the last is the marketing. I see that there's $6,000 in for different printing and binding. One of the things that I hate to see is that we're creating our own trash. Can we include outreaches to all the different elementary schools regarding the solid, what we do with our recycling programs? Can we do some sort of incentives for commercial recycling? This is not necessarily within this year's budget, but a thought process for next year's budget, hopefully, that we can expand commercial recycling, because if I'm not mistaken, we don't get charged for dumping recycling, but we get charged if there's, trash in the recycling. We have to then pay for all the recycling now. And the last thing that I got a lot of calls and emails during the hurricane was the email database. I know that Parks and Rec has a database, and a lot of other people have different databases, but some people don't really care about Parks and Rec, and they're really concerned about the solid waste. Is there a way for us to, when we have different timetables regarding holidays, to send out an email rather than just on the City of Boynton Beach's page? Basically, I want to help market this fund. Not just the issues moving forward, but help with recycling, our tire amnesty, give ideas regarding the lithium batteries, the electronics, and also You know, I know that we have on tonight's agenda the textile recycling, just so that we can work with our local partners to make sure that recycling is being used as wisely as possible, because I heard Broward County got rid of their recycling program because they didn't put enough effort into it, and that's not what I want to see here.
To answer part of that question, yes, we definitely, I mean, this year we went to Boynton Elementary. We actually had all the solid waste trucks there and the recycling trucks. We actually had some great press with Eleanor, with the young man who was on our truck, and that was a really positive story that we had. Stephanie Brown, who's our customer service supervisor, our customer service person, she's mans our recycling program. So she does a lot of outreach to the commercial and to market residential recycling. We're looking at some new software that would help with some of what you're talking about. That's something that we're in the early stages of talking with Eleanor about. We've had some demonstrations of the software. So we're hoping that next year we'll able to increase our recycling efforts as well as our outreach.
Yeah, I'd like to see, you know, you to come back and say all the 6 or 7 elementary schools that we have here, and the middle schools and charter schools, so that we really put an effort out for the, you know, how important trash it is and recycling is.
I want to do the same tour. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to that VIP tour of the Solid Waste Authority, but I definitely wanted to go, and I'm trying to next time to bring my kids, because I was told it was a really, really great tour.
And absolutely, and you know, I think that's also something that you should help advertise with the solid waste, is that it's also available to all the residents, because all the residents pay for the Solid Waste Authority budget. So it is open to everybody, except you need to be able to get over there. So
Yep.
look forward to doing that again.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Adrian, just a quick question. In all the years that you've been here, has there been ever talk about privatizing the solid waste pickup here in Boynton Beach? And would it be financially feasible? You don't have to go into depth, just a basic yes or no.
Since I've been here the 9 years, I know it was talked about one time. I recall looking at the numbers, and again, I think there's pros and cons to it. Obviously, you lose control when you outsource, especially during a time of a hurricane. There's the solid waste fund was, the fund was very robust at one point, which would help transfer money to the general fund. So, I mean, when you go to a privatized, that transfer is set. You can't fluctuate it because it's based on a contract. So, again, there's pros and cons, and it has been discussed. And the other flip side to that is we do employ a lot of people in the city as well, our division. So, the number of employees. Should have it right here. I don't have the number that actually live within the city, but we have 46 employees in the solid waste division.
And in regards to, have we ever been approached by privatizing solid waste, hey, try to marry us and all that stuff, and we said, no, we wasn't going to do it. Jerry went out, and Jerry became unhappy, and we said, no, we don't want that to happen in Boynton. With Boynton having their own, we have control, and that's what we said that we wanted, and we were seeking it. We was approached by the employees saying, why are you all going to do this to us? And we said, no, we're not trying to do this. Bear along with us, let us see the pros and cons, and we did not go that route, and we was happy that we did not go that route. Obviously, when we was, court, saying, come on, let us take over and stuff, and we went down the road and said, no, we're not going to do it. So they did try us.
Right. Okay.
That's what you get for being oldest thing sitting up here. I'm sorry.
Okay. Next, capital? Or, I'm not going to be able to do my cemetery joke, huh?
You can do your cemetery
No.
joke, you still living.
Jeff said I had to do the cemetery joke. So,
All right, let's go to the cemetery.
just kidding. It's okay. We were changing.
Money going in the hole, go ahead.
The capital budget plan, just a high-level overview of the big projects that we're taking on this year. Right now, we have citywide paving and sidewalk project. We have programmed $425,000 budgeted for replacement and additions. Funding, part of that funding is for sidewalk additions as a part of the Central Seacrest Phase 2 project. We do sidewalks on a replacement based on a priority list, and a majority of that construction will be completed through the new continuing services contracts that will be coming before you. Also, we have $300,000 budgeted for ADA replacements and $570,000 budgeted for street resurfacing. The engineering division has currently finalizing the list based on the bids were just opened, I believe, a few weeks ago. So they're finalizing the bids, and I believe that will be coming before you soon for award. Once they have the numbers in place, they'll finalize their list of what they can do with the money they have, and based on that, on pavement condition on what's out there. So I do have a list of the proposed projects that I can circulate to you.
Excuse me, I'm going to stop you. I need to ask a question. Are all of our facilities, are we ADA in compliance?
When you mean facilities like buildings or
Public
sidewalks
facilities.
or?
I'm talking that we utilize for the public because ADA, we need to be in compliance. My question is, are we in compliance?
So I believe it was back in 2010, we hired a consultant to come in and do an audit of all of our buildings. And so what they did is they created a report, and of that report there was $5 million worth of work that we had to do. And so what we did was we incorporated into the CIP with each project when we go and touch it, because we couldn't fix everything at one time. So what we've done is we've incorporated it into the CIP. So every time we go and do a project, we actually go in and resolve that ADA area.
I understand where you're going. Let me stop you and go ahead and go to the city manager. Lori, in regards to the report that came in 2010, I need a copy of the report. Go through it and tell me how much we have done and how much we are not in compliance with. That's my question. That's what I need information on. Thank you. I know it's $5 million, a lot of us. We didn't have it. I need to know where we are at this point.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Andrew, I have a question too. ADA, I know it's the letter of the law and we must comply, but weren't we given an extension to delay some of those projects?
Well, that's what a part of the plan. We actually adopted that ADA it's called a transition plan.
Transition.
So there was, the plan was adopted and it had our plan out there, and it's a phased plan, obviously.
Okay.
So
here's my issue, because if I'm correct, I think we spent close to almost $100,000 to do a couple of bathrooms in City Hall. I think it was well over $100,000 to put ADA ramps in there, and in a short period of time, in the next couple of months, that's all going to be gone away. Was that really necessary? Is that something we could have asked for a little further extension due to what we had planned? Or is that's taxpayer monies that's going to go into the wrecking ball?
City Hall was a little bit different situation because that was a part of our HUD compliance agreement. So we were mandated by HUD to do that work at City Hall because of our CBG dollars that we get. So since that group meets with the public there, we were mandated to get that done and had a stipulated time to get it done.
And there was no negotiation that had been done, said, look, this is what is going to be happening?
At the time, it had to be done.
I just see it a waste of dollars.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's something that we couldn't put off.
That's one of the other strings with the HUD money. When we get money like that for these programs, the feds come in and they'll do a pop inspection on City Hall, and they looked at access. We had to modify bathrooms inside the West Wing, the bathrooms in Town Hall, outside ramps. No ifs, ands, or buts. They mandated we do it, or we lose the SHIP funding, CDBG funding.
Yeah. Okay. All right, next slide. Oh, okay. All right, sorry. So one of our other major projects is the Saracens project. We have $776,000 budgeted this year as part of the combined project with the CRA. The project includes new restrooms, new pavilions, paving and concrete, water sewer drainage, landscape and irrigation, and fencing. This project's being broken down in 5 major components, and that's being done to facilitate local business participation. Ezel Hester Center project, we have $617,000 budgeted for upgrades in the park. This project includes pathway repairs, ADA modifications, painting of the pavilions, restroom painting, replacement of the scrub border fence, the conversion of the baseball field into a multi-purpose field, irrigation replacement, and HVA replacements as well. Oceanfront Park project, we have $362,000 budgeted for upgrades at the park. The projects include parking lot lighting, seal coating, restriping, playground design and replacement, shade sail replacement. These are the locations that were not replaced by the solar canopies, and a new stair retaining wall to improve access from the lower elevation to the upper elevation.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you know what the cost savings are from the shade sails that have been replaced by the solar canopies by FPL? What would we have spent?
Right now, the quote we have to replace just the shade sail itself in the where we're leaving is $53,000. So we probably saved over $150,000 by doing that.
So Andrew, there's no monies there earmarked for the Meadows, the park at the Meadows, or Knollwood
Hold
Park?
that thought.
Hold on.
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Meadows Park project. So we have $160,000 budgeted for upgrades in the park. The park project includes refurbishment of the bathroom. That's the changing of the inside to make it look fresh and new. Painting of the exterior and inside. Fitness trail equipment, park furnishing replacements, playground equipment, ADA upgrades, and sidewalk path replacements, and parking lot seal coating and restriping.
Thank you.
So what I have here is this is a summary of all the different projects, as obviously the CIP list can be 8 or 9 pages. So this is in the 302 General Fund. This is a list of the projects that we have slated for this year. The first two, the citywide public safety radio system, that's our ongoing maintenance payment for that replacement. The CAD records management system, again, that's the ongoing maintenance for that as well. The electronic plan review is the carryover from this fiscal year to next fiscal year for the implementation of that project as well. And then the last is the golf course projects.
It's bothering me when I go and see something that's not being repaired, and they say, well, we call it in. Somebody explain to me from the time you all receive a work order until it is completed. Walk me through this process so I can find out what the breakdown is, because I feel like we're not being due diligent in what we're doing. We need to have a faster turnaround. I'm sorry. It seems like things are not being done as real easy to get done. And walk me through the project. Okay, if I break that light up there, just take me through the project.
So for instance, I noticed yesterday while we were in here, there's 3 lights that are out.
They're still out, okay.
Right, there's 3 lights out. So I had texted one of our facility project managers and told them that the lights were out. So they'll put in a work order, and then they prioritize based on what all the work orders they have. Basically, the ones that are most serious first, and then they get to the ones that are less serious from there. Now, some things we have to outsource depending on what it is and the complexity of the repairs. So if it is outsourced, then we have to go through the whole procurement process, which takes some time as well. But one of the good things is this year, well, soon we'll bring it forward to you is a small minor construction bid project. That'll be where we're shortlisting 3 contractors, and we'll be able to do projects up to $185,000. So that'll help streamline and speed up these repairs as well. And also we're moving forward with more continuing service contracts so that we're able to basically issue that work order and get the work done immediately. Unfortunately, I don't have all of the different services on continuing service yet, but we're looking to move forward with more and more as a part of that. Roofing is another one. For instance, right now our staff do roofing inspections and do minor roof repairs. If there's a different type of roof repair, we actually have to procure bids. So that's something this fiscal year I want to do, is have where we outsource our roof inspections and then have the vendors on an on-call basis or as-needed basis to do roof repairs. So we're working with procurement. and Tim and Elise, and trying to come where we have these on as-needed based contracts, so that as things come up and arise, that we're able to go ahead and get the work done right away. Now, obviously, some of the work that we do with staff, we definitely can improve upon. I think I mentioned the other day about the cemetery, some of the stuff we fell behind there at the cemetery based on burials. So obviously, once that was brought to our attention, I authorized some overtime to have some of our other staff in parks work with the cemetery staff to catch them up on the maintenance. So.
Okay, my next question is, the outside of buildings that need painting, you know, I could see that they need painting. You all could see that they need painting, you know, and why don't we, as elected officials, have to call you all and say, what are you doing about this building in my district, in this district, you know, that needs painting? You know, I like to see us to be better, you know, stewards of what we have.
Yep.
And taking care of what we have. I'm just saying, and when you go and tell the citizens, you know, we go raise your taxes, they might not, you know, holler at us so bad. I'm just saying, they say, well, at least you're taking care of what we paid for.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So on the surtax, and I won't go through every line item here. I'll just highlight some of the key ones that I haven't highlighted. One of the projects that we have is the Boynton Beach Boulevard Extension Project. This is $115,000 to upgrade down there east of Federal on Boynton Beach Boulevard, where we have some planners that are failing. So we're working with the CRA to leverage the money to enhance that project as well. We have citywide recreation parks and sign projects. We're using that money to replace existing park signs. One of the things we're working on is coming up with a master sign project that's going to bore itself out of the Town Square project. So basically, we'd have a new standard that we would move forward with. Public Works compound project, that's $217,000. Part of that is some preliminary design work for the relocation, which we spoke about yesterday.
Andrew, that pistol range, didn't we just spend a good amount of money up here doing the pistol range, the roof, the air conditioning, and everything else? What's that $6,000 going to be used for?
I believe the pistol range is ADA repairs.
ADA compliant at the pistol range?
Yeah. Let's see, and these are our general HVAC replacements. The Hester Center that was included in that total. We have a few of the roofing projects are more painting than they are replacement of roofs. That's $14,000 total for roofing.
We're spending money and we're there, you know, and y'all see things that need to be done. Why can't we have foresight? Let's get it taken care of now instead of, you know, coming back, you know, and putting another diaper on the baby. You know, we already got them naked. Let's finish it.
Typically, like we mentioned, the air conditioning contractor and the ADA contractor don't go hand in hand, so we couldn't do that work together. But obviously, with these minor construction bids, when we go out, if we're going to go out there and do painting or do roof or a wall replacement or a door replacement, then that's when we'll do those type of projects.
We're going to be better stewards, okay?
Absolutely.
Andrew, on our pistol rings, do other departments use it to qualify?
I'm not 100% sure. I know I've seen some training there. I don't know if they use it to
And do we
qualify.
charge for that, or is it reciprocal throughout all departments?
I'd have to ask the police department.
Reciprocal. I don't know about the actual qualifying, but we do host a lot of training when we can there, as well as go to the gardens and other facilities that host training. But we don't charge.
And they don't charge us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm glad you clarified who was out there learning how to shoot, okay, because I'm getting kind of nervous if it's like you, okay?
So on this page, we have Little League Park. This is the $100,000 there is for the replacement of the dugouts.
Andrew, what was that Knollwood Park, project? What's 3,000? What's that?
I believe that's ADA as well. Yeah. Parking lot, yes. So that's probably
Okay.
seal coat.
At one time, they had a gate there that closed at, I believe it was 8 o'clock automatic and everything, and it got destroyed, and Jeff Livergood convinced me that it'd be better served if we took it out. So we have. But obviously, I live right there. And at night, and even during the day, there's activity that goes on there that's questionable.
Right.
Okay? My concern is the nighttime there. It's not well lighted at all, and it's hidden from the Lawrence Street view. And you can really see it if you're going into the Knollwood complex. Is there something we can do to relight that or put some additional lighting there to make it, less desirable?
Well, there's two things. I think we can revisit the closing the park after dusk and putting fencing. I know that you guys are looking at, as a part of the budget, the park ranger program.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would help. Obviously, if we have, part of the complexity we have is actually locking up the facilities in the evening, because typically the park staff would do it, the Parks and Grounds maintenance staff. So they're the ones that open them, and they're the ones that would close them, or we'd have the police department that would close them. So now that if we get approved with the park ranger, that will help facilitate that to where we can lock these buildings or these facilities. So we can look at reinstalling the gate, but also that is something that we could do, is install some additional landscaping or lighting for security purposes as well.
Okay, I'd like to have that discussion.
And as we go on through the year, when we put together the estimates for this, obviously sometimes they go up, sometimes they go down. So what you'll see on the quarterly basis or as needed basis is we'll bring back to you amendments to the plan, and that's what we typically do. We'll take money from a line item that we know we saved money on and maybe include it with a Knollwood 3,000 parking lot and get the lighting done at that time. So.
Thank you.
Let me revisit this park ranger, because I'm getting some questions and concerns. Okay, and who's going to schedule what time they start riding around and start locking these parks down? I'm just saying, because we said it's supposed to close at 10 o'clock. What time will they start closing them? At 10 o'clock? Then it's going to be 30 minutes to get to another site, 3 more sites or something like that. Who's going to do the scheduling?
Wally Majors.
Okay, so just be cautious of District 2. I'm just saying,
Well, I'm sure they'll establish priorities of which parks we need to get to at the exact
Yeah.
time.
we have a discussion.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
And Andrew, just one more quick question. That Little League Park there, is that the new netting that had to go up that was destroyed during the hurricane?
That's part of this year's project.
Is that that 100,000?
That 100,000 is for the replacement of the dugouts, the roofs of the dugouts. That's what that money's for, the dugouts.
Okay. Is that Little League, we're talking about where the East Boynton
Yes.
Little League is?
Correct.
Is that open to all, can a group of kids get together and go just play a scrub game of baseball over there?
Typically, you would need to schedule it through either the Little League, right? They have
Yeah.
exclusive rights to the field, so that you would need
They
to...
have exclusive rights to the field.
Yep.
So that kind of eliminates a lot of kids that want to go play baseball at a nice baseball diamond, correct?
There, we do have Galaxy Park, which has a baseball field.
Well, I understand there's other parks with baseball fields, but that's the primo ball field in Boynton Beach.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an exclusive to a certain group of people. And we're spending $100,000 of taxpayer dollars plus whatever that net cost us to fix after the hurricane. Shouldn't that be more accessible to citizens and kids that want to get a game going and get over there? And
Yeah, that's...
If the commission desires that, each year when we bring the contract forward, we can modify that or extinguish it.
yeah, it's not like we're making money off this individual group by exclusively giving them the rights to that ball field. And I'm all for from playing here. But I think it should be, if we're going to pay $100,000 of taxpayer dollars here, I think, the citizens of Boynton Beach have every right to play in that field. And most of those kids, if you want to get technical, don't even live in Boynton Beach.
Right.
They're more from West Boynton.
Right.
Okay? And they truck them in here and play in our city for a field that we maintain and cost the taxpayers of Boynton Beach. So that irks me a little bit that we can't modify that deal that we have, that it opens up that field to more.
I think just recently the commission, we entered into a new contract with them for probably 2 years, 2 or 3 years. I don't, was Hagen? Oh, it's only 1 year, so we went down. We used to have multi-year, we went down to 1 year. So in about another year, we can have that discussion.
I won't
We
be
bring
here.
it forward.
That's all right, we can carry
I'll know where to find you.
We got it.
Yeah.
We got it.
Okay. Continuing on, the next project is the tennis center. We're spending $86,000 at the tennis center. That's seal coating of the parking lot and upgrading of the median. A total of $2.5 million in recreation and parks from the surtax. And then the last part, which we talked.
Real quick, just because I'm not necessarily familiar with all the names of various parks, other than the tennis center, is there any other project within District 1?
Any other projects in District 1? Nothing I'm aware of.
No.
As far as, I know that we have some maintenance work at a fire station 2, or the old, well, PD 2, that's going there, but there's not that many parks in that part of the district.
Because I know that it comes up in passing to residents on the ordinary thing about how much taxes come from this district and how much is spent in that district and vice versa and all that stuff. So I just want to point out, but if that discussion moves forward, I think that people are going to be shocked by the fact that their districts actually get a lot of money, and if we were going to go into some sort of quality-based distribution system that we would like to see District 1 and District 4 receive additional funds, and District 2 and District 3 lose funds. So I know the residents come up and ask these questions a lot. I think that they usually live on the east side, and I think it's shocked people to realize that the overwhelming majority of money spent in the city regularly goes to the east side. So that constantly comes up, and I think the group back to the levy of the meeting, but it's not an accurate assessment that money is not being spent in those three places.
I know in the future we're looking at adding commission districts to our CIP list, so we're able to sort and categorize them for distribution purposes.
Andrew,
But in regards to what he just said with the east side, we have more facilities.
Correct.
Because we have more vacant land that was taken and used for recreation purposes. Like we have the Intracoastal here. That's why, funds are there. Well, we're paying as much fair share as we can, but I'm just saying, people come from the west side over to the east side. So I'm just saying the fair share is fine, but, we're never going to be able to satisfy everybody.
Well, that's okay. I'm not fighting
I
for that.
understand.
And I would invite anyone from the east side to come to the community and to the dog park.
Thank you.
Andrew, if you could back that up to the tennis club there.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we just recently spend, I believe it was $100,000 on new lighting there? Was it last year? Did we put new lights in?
Last year. I think it was a couple of years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, we spent, Wally, you want to speak on that? Did we spend, I know it was a tremendous amount of money to redo the lights there. Okay.
I think it was more than 2 years ago.
Okay, and how many members do they have at that tennis club? And they pay a fee, right, to join that club? There's a fee there? Does those fees pay for the club itself, the maintenance and everything? So how many Boynton residents actually belong to that?
Mike?
I can find out the exact number pretty quickly, but I believe it's low 100s, I believe.
Okay, so once again, here's my complaint, if you will. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on facilities, parks, tennis clubs that very few of Boynton residents get to enjoy. All right? My issue is that, either they make the fee enough to pay for what the cost is to run a tennis club, for a private tennis club, or we cut it out. I can't see spending taxpayer dollars on what turns out to be a private tennis club, basically. Okay, I don't agree with that. It's like the golf. We wouldn't allow that at the golf course. Okay, if it doesn't pay for itself, then why are we keeping it in operation, and why are we subfunding it? So those are my issues with it. And like I said, we just got through spending could have been $100,000 for all new lighting there, and very few Boynton residents get to enjoy that. So I would like to see some kind of fee structure that pays for the facility itself. I don't mind having, I'm a tennis fan, I enjoy tennis, I don't play it. But with that being said, I don't think it should be, the enjoyment of others should be put on the back of taxpayers of Boynton Beach.
But I feel like when they come to the tennis center, I'm gonna be honest, number one, that hopefully that they're spending money in Boynton someplace else, the mall or something else, restaurants or something else. I'm just saying, so it's beneficial to the city. I'm just saying, how will we do the fee structure if we have to redo it? But, you know, let them continue to come. I'm just saying, you know, everybody in Boynton don't play tennis.
Okay.
Do we advertise the tennis facility, or is it just that, you know, stereotypically, people that might tend to play tennis with the
We advertise it through social media and through the press releases. When we go through another cycle where we're taking permit holders, renew the permits. And keep in mind, not everybody that plays at the tennis center has a permit. We do get a lot of people that just register for tennis leagues, that basically play just for the privilege of being participating in a league. So, but yeah, the commissioner's right. There was several years ago where we did come before the commission and recommended a fee hike that would have brought us a lot closer to recovering the cost to manage that facility, and that was at that time voted down. Again, things change, things evolve, and perhaps there's a different sense of how that facility should be managed now. But you know, that was something that we contemplated several years ago, and it wasn't supported. It was probably right around 2005, 6. Maybe we could look it up. It certainly came before the commission. There was a long discussion. Several people came to the commission to speak about the topic. I don't remember the exact date.
You're right around 2005, because I had the tennis players come up, what are you all doing, you know, and we had to sit there and listen. I was sitting.
You're right. Good. All right. If there's any individual, like, we can go through the line items if you have questions.
All right.
That's in your budget book.
One of the things I think is also important that I've been asking other departments is the quarterly updates. You know, this is an Excel spreadsheet. You know, right now everything's budgeted, but we don't know when the items are procured, when they're being construction, and when they're finished. You know, there's a master spreadsheet that you could update on a quarterly basis and send it out to us, just so that we know things are moving along, that the money's being spent wisely. I know that we have our surtax group that it probably oversees all this, and so just making sure that we see it as well. And then, you know, the funny thing about it is the history of Boynton Beach is that at one time, the east side basically paid for all of the west side when it was just cows over there. So, you know, I think with Town Square coming in, the east side would be paying more moving forward, and then, you know, supporting the west side. And also for District 1, there's 64 acres of park that the whole county pays for over at Colusa Park. So, you know, we also have to thank everybody outside of the city of Boynton Beach that helps pay for that park over there that doesn't cost the city any money that's within the city. You know, we also have all the scrubs that the county offers that doesn't cost us any to maintain, because, as you see, it wasn't in the budget. So there's a lot of things that we work together to accomplish. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to, you know, continuing with this capital improvement and spending the money wisely.
I would just make note that all this new construction going on the east side is not going to benefit many people on the west side of 95, because most of it's taken care of right in the CRA district, so that money will stay basically in the same district that it's generated in.
Any further comment by the board? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Andrew. So are we moving on to utility now? All right. Who's doing the presentation?
Joe and Colin.
Joe and Michael?
presentation, right?
Yes.
As the interim utility director, so be calm. No.
So anybody can ask questions at any time.
Yeah, please interrupt me
Go right
if you
ahead.
have any
It's
questions.
just refreshing, we don't have to listen
Yeah.
to Colin, yeah.
Oh, no, you're going to listen to it. It's not over yet. Somebody has to take Jeff's place, so I stood up and...
Well, I'm pleased to present our, excuse me? No, I don't need it. You can do it. See me flip it off. I'm pleased to present our $48,708,104 budget for 18-19.
Why don't you introduce yourself first?
I thought I was introduced, but yes, my name is Joe Paternity, and I'm the interim utility director in training. So I'm here to present our budget for the utilities.
And what's the budget again?
The budget for 18-19 is $48,708,104,
Perfect.
which represents a 4.7% increase in last year's budget. Some of the major changes include the general fund direct overhead of $22,850,000, the general fund dividend to the commission, to the general fund, actually, $3,750,000, I'm nervous, I guess, $3,750,000, which is a $250,000 increase from last year's budget. Yes, yes. and I'll, no, go back. Go back. It's okay. We're doing a transfer to the renewal and replacement fund for the infrastructure renewal and replacement, $7 million, which is actually the same as last year's transfer. And then we're increasing our debt service commitment to $6,987,200. This is a breakdown of our 12 divisions in the utility and the increases associated with each division. And basically, the primary reason for the increase is due to inflation and some additional staff, which I'll talk about on the next slide, Tony. We're adding 3 additional field technicians to the staff to provide a second shift or evening crew to better serve the community. We have a lot of call-outs throughout the year, and this is a shift from about 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock to handle some of those after-hours calls and reduce our call-out budget. We've done that, and a net increase of $105,000. And we're also adding one operator for the plant, operator trainee, to reduce our dependence on some outside vendors that we currently use. Staff reclassification. Water treatment plant, sorry. One water treatment plant operator trainee. We're reclassifying several of our staff as a result of a salary survey we conducted with the HR department and to be more competitive in our local market, so we're increasing that budget by $98,000. As Mayor Grant mentioned, these are some of the progress and some of the completed projects we've done in last year's budget, and wanted to highlight those for the utilities' sake. We've completed the north and south road utility improvements. We've included, excuse me, we've completed the Northeast 20th Avenue Stormwater Improvements Project. You can see the values of each of those projects. We've finally finalized the East Water Treatment Plant, WTP, plant capacity and treatment improvements, $30 million project that Michael helped complete this year. We've also completed a lift station upgrade to lift station 309, and that was $1.83 million. And the following are some of the photographs of the sites, kind of just showing some of the improvements we made from left to right. On the north and south road, we upgraded the stormwater system there as well as the water distribution system in the neighborhood, providing better fire control for the neighborhood and improving the look of the neighborhood. We put some nice curving in and some new asphalt. Complete
I can tell you that when we first set it up, when we first set up the program to start changing out, we had planned on between 12 and 15 years because we have a lot of fire hydrants and we're only replacing them as they fail. I think that's sped up a little bit, so I think we're probably around the 10 to 11 years now because we've done some extra projects, and from the first time we looked at it, so it's somewhere between 10 and 11 years right now is the schedule to have most of them, almost all of them changed out. There might be a few stragglers. If there was a hydrant put in like 1 year before we started changing them out to the new style, that might be 15 years out, but the vast majority of them is 10 to 11 years in that time frame. And I knew you were going to ask me how many we have. Michael knows.
Just over 4,000.
Right.
How many have we changed out?
Oh, we've probably done,
2/3?
no. We've done 800, 700 to 800 in the last 3 years. We'll get you the exact number because we do keep count of the exact numbers. I'm trying to do that off the top of my head, probably not wise, but we'll get you the exact numbers of the total number of hydrants, what we've changed out, what that schedule looks like.
In regards to the budget, when I ask the question, I'm not trying to be hard on anybody. I want to know the number. If I said the number, please talk about I think. That's nice to think it's, sir, but I'm just saying, if it's 50, it's 50. This is a budget. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Colin, why did we, I took a lot of hydrants in my 30-plus year career as a firefighter, okay? And those aren't real hydrants. So why did we go to those things that look like ET?
So we changed to the Siglock hydrants for a couple reasons, and we went over this a couple years ago, but I'll go over it again. A couple reasons. One is the hydrants that most people use now have been around they've been around a long time, 100 years.
And always were.
They're probably as old as you are, but maybe not quite.
Oh, you got him back.
I'm just teasing, you know.
Colin might be the next street sweeper.
Yeah, I might be the next street sweeper.
This review is coming up.
So, but the reason we changed is because, security of our water system has become a top priority in all utilities. And this was a reinvented hydrant from a company that looked at what are our security risks of our hydrants, and there are security risks with the old type hydrants. So these hydrants give us that secure locking mechanism on it that only the fire department can access. The wrenches that are used on them are numbered wrenches. We know who has them, and they don't get copied. So we have control over who accesses hydrants or not. So that's one thing. The second thing is the way they're built. They're built with an epoxy coating in the factory that we don't really have to paint. I mean, if you know hydrants, how many times you have to go out? How many times do you go out and paint hydrants? Probably quite a bit, because that's what firefighters used to do. We do it now.
Not where I came from.
Not where you came from. I've run fire departments that they did, but been involved in them. But so we don't have to paint them as often, so the maintenance is less. And the third thing is the locking mechanism or the valve mechanism that controls the water in and out is a higher standard valve system, so we don't have the leakage in the water lossage. So there was reasons we changed, and really the main reason was the security issue.
Okay, so are they so designed if they were hit by an automobile, they wouldn't give that water spout?
That's correct. They have a foot valve that they hit. Now, if somebody hits it and there's some freak thing that the pipe breaks off in the ground past the foot valve, it will leak into the ground, but you won't have that hydrant spraying that you see in the movies. Really doesn't happen that often. That only happens when the foot valve is destroyed, which doesn't happen very often.
Next project was our East Water Treatment Plant improvements. We introduced, as you know, the MIAC system, which allows us to treat water from the western well field. Also, we included some artwork to improve the city's branding, and I think that project went really well. Next slide.
I'd just like to say, I think that's one of the best things that since I've been living in Boynton Beach is that water tower. We get more compliments on that water tower and how it's lit up. It's become a beacon for anybody on the Intracoastal. It's just super. And I commend you guys for taking it.
The fire chief was bragging the other day, so I got to brag a little bit about utilities. He can't be the only one that brags.
That's right.
It's not fair, but so it is. It's a unique tower in the world. It's getting worldwide recognition, and the colors just make it that much better. We actually are every month we're improving the way we can use those colors, and we are going to come up with a way that the public can vote on colors and pick the colors at night on certain nights. So we're still working toward that, but
It's a screensaver.
yeah, it did turn out to be a great part of the project. And what's amazing, all those colors and everything else were the same price as if we just put in white lights. Didn't cost us any extra to do it. Really nice.
Yeah, that's a good job.
Let me ask a question, because I don't know about changing the colors. How do you change the colors? Is it
It,
button?
it's done by a computer system. It's hooked up to a computer system, and you happen. The problem we have engineers designing the colors now, which isn't the best thing. We need artists, but we don't have an artist on staff, so it's engineers picking them now. So.
It is on the website, and the public can request the different colors.
Right. So we have a request for the public if they want to request certain colors, and they can put it in, and we'll set those colors up.
All right, our CIP development. One of the forms of technology that we use is this UMOP program. It's a financial model, and it allows us to input our capital projects as well as our operating costs, and it projects some of the revenue needs over the 30 to 50-year period. We have a separate financial model for each of our utility divisions, and it projects the growth. It identifies the projects. We identify projects based on the projected population growth as well as the asset condition. Another one of our technologies that we use is our asset management system, which is going live for the East Water Treatment Plant and the West Water Treatment Plant next month, where we have each asset identified and as well as the maintenance records of each of the components. So moving on.
I have a question. Okay, with the treatment plants that we have, the water facility, et cetera, and we always adding on other little tributaries and all that stuff, little groups and all that stuff. And the 4C future, the report is not in here good. Do we look like we're going to run out of water? I'm just saying, you know.
We have plenty of water treatment plant capacity. We have a backbone well field transmission main where we have some opportunities to, basically limiting capacity right now is our raw water supply, but we have enough water into the future, another 30 years, I guess. So we have opportunities to add more
And
wells.
we're not looking at no salt intrusions, correct?
Right, we're drawing a lot of the water from our western well field, bringing it east to where the demand is.
I'm going to be quiet. We got commission even, and I'm sorry.
Yes. Well, going forward, 18-19, we're planning some major projects that you may be interested in learning about. We're on the Western Water Treatment Plant. We have some membranes that are getting to the end of their useful life. We're going to be replacing those. The Central Seacrest Corridor Drainage and Water Main Replacement project is currently underway, and it'll extend into next year's budget as well. Lakeside Gardens, Lake Drive, and Potter Road were areas prone to flooding. We're going to be looking at stormwater improvements to that neighborhood. As you know, the new Central Energy Plant is on task for next year as well. We're building a new water quality laboratory at Fire Station number 2, which will be out soon. We're expanding our reuse system as part of our permit requirements. We're going to have to utilize a lot more treated effluent from the South Central District wastewater plant and distribute that farther north from where it is right now into various park sites and such, and across Intracoastal if possible.
On that reuse water, what capacity we at? Is there a percentage that, I know that we've been marketing that for a while now to sell it out there. How are we on schedule?
So at the wastewater plant, we process around 18 million gallons a day of wastewater. We are disposing of somewhere between 6 and 8, depending on the day and the rain, $6 to $8 million a day into reuse. We're trying to increase that. By our permit, we're required to increase that. In Boynton, we're a little bit behind Delray because there's a lot of reasons. One is we didn't have as many golf courses. So that's what this project is to increase that capacity and get it to more people. We're looking at going across the Intracoastal to the 2 golf courses there. We were going to go to Cypress Lake, but we're not now. So they're closing. But we have several other customers, big customers, that have come up and asked us to connect. A couple other golf courses that we've talked to. And we've got, I don't know, 7 or 8 HOAs that are very interested in connecting. So as we expand this, we'll be connecting their large irrigation systems. So we think we're going to get to that. We need to add in Boynton Beach somewhere between 3 and 4 million gallons a day of capacity over the next couple of years. And so that's what this project does. And it's a multi-year project, and we'll add pipe as we have customers.
Is Hunter's Run on board?
Hunter's Run? Yes. So we're in conversation with Hunter's Run. We're going to be having a big meeting with their president's group here shortly to talk about. They already have it at their golf course, but we want to talk about using it on their. And they're actually. What's amazing is they've come to us and they've asked us to bring it in to do the residential areas.
Great.
So they're very interested in it now, which is great.
We also were able to acquire a $250,000 grant from the state legislature. We were awarded that, so we're processing that, and that's going to help with our reuse system. We can talk about that more. The next few slides that show a little bit more detail that we go into as far as our capital planning process, and we highlight some of the projects. We show the Demick and Potter Road. The Demick and Potter Road expansion there. We're getting a grant from flood hazard mitigation grant. We're applying for that through the county. It's an $850,000 grant supposedly that we're going to be trying to get. So we're moving forward with that, and that's going to help with this project. You see the Central Seacrest Corridor funding as well on this slide. Go ahead. This is our wastewater capital, some of the projects here as well. We're going to be rehabbing some of the pumping stations. That's the R&R item there on the second to the last. Over $1 million we're dedicating to that this year. So we're moving forward with that as well. And the next slide shows some of our water treatment plant improvements. Total capital budget is $22 million, a little over $22 million. So that kind of sums up the plan for 1890. And for the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Colin, and he will show you how we utilize this financial model to sustain our utility going forward.
So like I said, I'm going to take over for Jeff and get into the weeds here, but not really. We'll do this pretty quick. Utilities need to fund themselves. There's no way to subsidize a utility. So one of the things we do is every year we look at what our costs are and what are our rates. We're fortunate now that we have some very powerful tools to use to determine whether or not our rates are sufficient to cover our needs, not only just for the next year, but for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and looking out. So looking at the budget that we've presented this year, I'm going to start off by saying is we haven't had a rate increase in a couple of years, but we've had increases in cost over those couple of years. Every year our costs go up for chemicals, gas, fuel, electricity, materials. Our labor costs go up. Every year those go up in utilities, and those are things we have to have. It's not something we can just cut a program. I mean, when pipe needs to be replaced, it has to be replaced. So these costs are going up. And so what we always look at, the first thing we look at is if we don't do anything with our rates, where are our costs? And so there's a couple different things we look at. One is we look at by utility. So if we look at this chart, what we look at is on the water side, what are all of our expenses to produce water? And if you look at this, what's interesting is the bar is our different departments. So each one of these colors is a division within utilities and what they spend. Green is the largest, that's wastewater. And then it goes up. The red bar is the revenue bringing in to cover that cost. So if you look at just water, it says that we're raising enough money to cover our costs. So our costs are here and our money raising up here. But as we move across and we look at wastewater, we're not raising enough money in the wastewater fees to cover those costs. We come down to stormwater and there's a big gap. It's about almost a $3 million gap. So we're shorting in stormwater. We have about $3 million a year more expenses than we have revenue coming in. So where does that revenue come in? It's going to have to come from other places. Reuse is a little bit different. Even though we don't make any money on reuse is really a substitute for potable. So most utilities are okay with subsidizing reuse with the potable difference. So right now it costs us, now this is going to change as we add customers, but we'll never make money on reuse because reuse is cost the same to make as potable water, but we sell it for about a third of the cost to get people to use it. The reason we do that is because if we have to create new potable water sources, the cost of potable water triples. So we don't want to do that. So it's actually cheaper to subsidize the reuse and keep the potable water cost down. I don't know if that makes sense. But if you see here, really what I'm looking at is we're not raising enough money to pay our costs. So next slide. Oh, I got the slide thing. Never mind. Whoops. There we go. So when we look at this, what this is our overall utility cost. So our budget is about $49 million this year, and you can see based on our revenue, we're not going to raise enough money this year for next year to cover our costs. And what that means is we dip into our reserves. So this gray bar going down is our reserves. So if we don't touch our rates and do anything with rates over the next 5 years, we're going to dip into our reserves and start using them up to cover those cost differentials. Okay, I got to figure out which button. There we go. So this is the important slide that I use. What this does is it looks at what our costs are. These are the revenue coming in. These are the costs we're going to be spent out of the fund, at that particular fund, and what our reserve is going to do. And if you look at this, basically the important thing is if we don't touch our rates, we're pretty good here, but in 5 years we're going to be $8 million in the hole in our reserves, and that's really bad for a utility. We need to keep 6 months of reserves in our thing, just in case there's a hurricane or something and we can't collect rates. We need to be able to fund the utility to keep it up on the street and keep people with clean water. So this is the thing we look at. So when we look at all of this, we find out that our rates need to be adjusted a little bit to cover our additional costs. So what we're proposing is we have a couple different ways. We can raise rates a lot of ways. One is we can just say we're going to raise all rates by 3% across the board. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is a dollar amount. What we're looking at is since our increases are caused by our consumer price indexes, why don't we adjust rates by the same indexes, and that means what we're collecting in rates is exactly what it's costing us. So what we did is we went and looked at the 12-month averages as of the end of June, and if you look at those 12 months, the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, the average over the last 12 months was 2.8%. Wages and salaries in public service, this isn't all wages and salaries, this is for public service, 1.8, and energy, which is our electricity, is 0.6. These are our biggest things. So what we would look at rates is we would apply these percentages to the things that affects. So all of our materials, our pipe, our pumps, all of the vehicles we purchase, all of those kind of things we buy, the CPI affects those costs. That's all built into here. Wages and salaries, you know what that is. And energy is our electric. Our electric bill that's a large part of our budget, paying for power for our plants and our pump stations. So what we're going to propose is instead of just doing a straight percentage across the board, let's apply the indexes to those portions of the budget that the indexes affect. So when we say we're going to raise 2.8, it's 2.8 on the parts of our budget that the consumer price index affects. So what that means is, just looking at the picture, if we put that into our model, which is right here, 2.8, 1.8, 0.6 for energy, what it does is it says, okay, now our revenue is going to start going up, and we're going to see an increase in revenue. And the important part is again, now you're seeing we're starting to increase and getting closer to paying for itself. We're still doing a little bit of subsidies with that in wastewater, but you can see water, it slowly goes up. We're still subsidizing that a little bit, but a lot less than it was before. The other thing we're recommending is the stormwater, as I showed you. The problem with stormwater is we're way underfunding stormwater. The stormwater fee was originally $6 a month. It was lowered to $5 a month, and there wasn't really any reason for that, but our costs continue to go up. So what we're recommending is $1 increase a month in stormwater back to the $6, and then we're proposing the next 2 years, 50 cents a year. That still doesn't get us all the way up to where we need to be to fund stormwater, but it gets us a lot closer. And the most important thing is what it does is it starts paying for itself. If you notice in the years, now we're actually paying for the utility over the 5-year period. We don't want to do this all at once. We could, but it doesn't make sense to just raise everything at once. We can do it gradually and we can pay for it. And the most important part, you see the reserves starting to stabilize and go back up, which this is my most important slide. We're not going to dip in the reserves. With this proposal, we wouldn't dip in the reserves. We would start, but the max we would be is about $2.4 million, which I don't worry about a $2.4 million dip into the reserves because that's 5 years out, and we're going to have some more changes in costs. Some costs are going to go down, some costs will go up a little bit. But I believe these costs, that's close enough within that 15% of what we want to keep that our normal doing business and learning, finding ways to save money will cover that differential. I can't project it right now. What I'm saying is I can project 3 years, and this is a little bit, but that's close enough. That's a lot better than $8 million. $8 million, if we had an $8 million hole in our reserves, we would be looking at 25-30% increases, which, by the way, utilities around us are doing this year. They're doing some very large increases this year for that very reason. What we like to do is let's adjust the rates slowly and slightly just to cover our costs, and then we don't have any large rate increases. So this is what it really means. So what does this rate increase mean? If we adjust our rates by the cost of inflation and we change stormwater, add $1 a month to the stormwater, what does it mean to customers? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these. These would what our rate charts would look like. Whoops. See, I did the same thing you did, Ted. This is what our rate chart would look at. So I'll just pick one inside the city limits. Water, our residential rate would go from base charge of $12.35 to $12.65. And that's a 30-cent increase. And you can see these increases across our rates. Now, one of the things I know you all remember is we have these conservation rates for how much you use. So your first 9,000 gallons, you're only paying $1.65 per 1,000 gallons. You go over that, and it starts significantly going up. The reason for that is we give you a discount if you use less water. If you use more water, you pay more. So we start significantly increasing these costs as we go up. So we've adjusted these rates all the way across. These are outside the city rates. Again, remember, they pay the 25% surcharge, so they pay 25% more than inside the city. And then here's the stormwater that I want to point out was we would raise $1 increase from $5 to $6, and then the out years we're proposing $6.50 and $7, and being at $7 in the out years. So in reality, what does that really mean? Because I think people really care about what the bills are. So we looked at several different bills. Single-family house, 3,000 gallons. That would be a house in Leisureville, a house in places like that. Their bill would, if they're inside the city, their bill would go from about $49.18 to $51.16. So it's a little less than $2. Of course, $1 of that is for stormwater. So it's a little less than $1 for their water and sewer bills, and this includes the taxes that are on the bills. So it's not just the bills, it's the bills and the taxes. And when you're inside the city, of course, we have the 10% utility tax, which covers our debt service. Outside the city, again, 53 to 54.32, but remember, there's no stormwater in this fee. This is just water and sewer. Because when you're outside the city, you don't pay the stormwater fee to the city. So it's fairly small for the small. 10,000 you can see from 71 to 74. That's somebody who's in a bigger house that does some irrigation during the year. Apartments, these are standard apartments. You'll see what their bill is. The bill would go up a little bit. The big customers are going to see an increase, not a huge increase, but about $100 a month. A very large customer. This would be the hospital customers like that. They would see about $100 a year increase. And then outside, we have a big customers outside that are medium customers, about 160,000 gallons, and they would go up about $30. So what I like to do, again, this is again bragging a little bit. So what we did is we've gone out in conjunction with other utilities around us. We've done some rate studies for all the utilities in our area because we want to see how we compare. So we've listed all the utilities, and the rates start with Boca Raton, who's definitely cheaper, but they do something different with their rates. They get their money from other places for the utility. But, yes, they are number one. I can't get that low. There's no way you can run a utility that low, but they are, so we'll leave it there. Town of Jupiter.
Stop. I'm sorry. When you probably shouldn't have said this. Boca Raton get their money from other sources like what?
They bill their customers there's other things on their bill that makes up the difference, and then they move that money to fund the utility. So they have other things in their bill. It's just very hard. It's very difficult to determine what they're actually billing their customers. They have a different kind of billing system. First of all, they bill by number of toilets, which is very strange. We don't do it that way. We just bill by what water you use. So the reason I always point that out is because they are low, but it's kind of deceiving because we're not sure exactly what the customers are paying because of the way they do their billing. But with that said, right now we're sitting number 4 lowest in the whole area with the highest being Manalapan, at a standard 10,000 gallon a month bill would be $200, and we're sitting at 63. And even with our increase, we'd still be the fourth lowest. I'd like to be closer to Highland Beach. They're again, much smaller utility, and they don't do the treatment that we do for the water. They don't have the big plants that we have, so they're allowed to do a little cheaper. I really these guys are great. I talk to them all the time. They're doing some really neat things. Some of that, though, is private. They don't have to keep some of the things as, we do some extra things for our customers that private utilities don't do, but I'd love to be there. But we're really good on our rates right now. Again, I always like to say, for a full-service utility that offers a lot of different services, we're really the lowest around of any city. Definitely lower than our neighbors, substantially lower. If you see our next nearest neighbor is 76, which is Delray Beach. Wellington 79. Wellington's going up between 20 and 30% on their rates this year. That's what they're proposing. So they call it a modest increase. It's a pretty big increase. So with that, so what are our next steps? Today, all we're doing is presenting this because it's part of our budget. To raise the $49 million, we do need to adjust the rates. We could do some different things, but these are the rate adjustments we're suggesting. So if there's some consensus to move forward with that, we will bring an ordinance to you in August to start looking at that, and then in September we'll have to do the rate hearing, because when you change rates in utility, you have to do a rate hearing, and we're going to move the rates to a resolution. So there'll simply be a resolution and a short rate hearing in a September meeting. We have to give 30-day notice to our customers, so if there's consensus to kind of look at this, not consensus to say yes, but consensus to at least move forward to give the notice that there'll be a rate hearing, we'll start working on that process to make sure we follow the rules. So with that, any questions?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Okay, good.
First of all, Collins, I'm going to be honest with you. You're talking about reserves, okay? When Lori hired you as the utilities director, you started doing a hell of a lot of projects that when I was sitting there, I'm like saying, yeah, we need to do this, we need to do that. We never was doing any of them. When you came on, you started spending money, like it was water.
No pun
like
intended.
it was water, sir. Probably projects that we needed to have been doing and should have been doing. But I'm just saying, was we do diligently in what we did? Because there have been, some of these been pushed out instead of saying they got to be done now, because this makes me look good instead of the city looks good.
That's actually a really good question, because when in a utility, you only want to do projects that are necessary to keep the utility functioning. When I got here 4 years ago, North-South Road is a perfect example. That was designed in 2000, the year 2000. Couldn't get it going, so we finally figured out a way to get that built. That was needed to be built. You had houses that were flooding when it rained, so it needed to be built, and we had water systems that were very old. The water plant was driven, the big water plant project was driven by regulatory issues. We had saltwater intrusion. The water management came in and said, you got to take less water from the eastern well fields. You can't take 20 million gallons a day. You got to take 6. Well, 6 to 20 is a huge number, so we had to build a project to move that water from the west to the east to get it to where we needed it, but not impact. So those are projects that are required by regulatory issues. So what are the projects that we're doing that are somewhat, that parts of the project could be say, well, you could not do them? The neighborhood improvement projects, we're doing those projects because the water lines and the sewer lines are very, very old. They need to be replaced. A lot of them are asbestos concrete lines. They're breaking. We have a lot of breakage and boil water, so they need to be replaced. But when you're in the neighborhood replacing those, why not fix everything? Going back to your point is when you're in some place, fix everything that's there. So those projects are a little bit bigger than just water and sewer. We're adding stormwater. Public Works is putting some new sidewalks in. We're repaving the roads. So yes, those projects get a little bigger. Now, when you look at the roads, we'd have to repave them anyways because we're digging them up to put the water lines in. So we have to repave them. So yes, those projects are a little bit bigger than normal, but we have to replace. These are neighborhoods that are 50 and 60 years old, and they need to be replaced. So the question is are there projects we can put off? And the answer is we look at that. That's what this program does. We can go into our programs now. We can look at the condition of the asset. How old is it? What are the brakes on it? And we, based on that decision, we say, when does it need to be replaced? And let's say we say it needs to be replaced in 2022. So we put that in there. Well, in 2021, when we're preparing the budget, we're going to look at that at condition again. And if it can shift a year, we're going to shift it a year. Because we do want to balance out that capital. We have had a lot of expenditures. We borrowed 38, how much? We borrowed about $40 million in utilities in two borrowings and two different things to pay for the big water treatment plant and moving that water from east to west. Those were big projects. We had to do them. We didn't have a choice because we wouldn't have water if we didn't do them. What we're trying to do now is if you look at our out years, we're not going to be borrowing money. We're not proposing any borrowing money in at least 10 years that we're looking at, probably longer than that, unless somebody from Washington says, we don't like any of your plants, replaceable. We're sending somebody to Tallahassee to keep that from happening, I hope. But we can't control that. But what we have done is set up a project so we know when things need to be replaced. We're budgeting for those out of our revenues so we don't have to dip into reserves. And we're trying to do the best we can to schedule those projects to be done exactly when they need to be done. It's called just-in-time delivery. We don't want to deliver them too soon. We don't want to deliver them too late. We want to be just in time so we're using the money properly.
Asset management.
Debt services retired that we just said about $40 million.
Here, I'll just give you this.
Also, our asset management program will help us manage those assets and get a better picture
Right,
about
so-
when to replace those.
Right. So every year, we're going to be analyzing our assets and looking at what is the condition of all of those and when do they need to replace. And that gets updated, and we decide when those projects need to be built. Go ahead.
I'm not sure when, I'll have to get back to you. There's 3 or 4 outstanding issues, bond issues. They all retire at different times, but I'll get the information for you. And just a note, when I started in 2008, they did a rate study by CH2 and Hill.
Yes.
CU. And in the rate study, it had actually projected that the city was going to issue 2 series of bond issues for utility projects. The planned issuance was, I believe, 2011 and 2012 or 13. We issued the first round, which was $23 million. It took us longer to spend that money than it had anticipated, so we didn't issue the second round until 2015. But the plan was that those 2 issuance were going to be able to provide the city funding to do these major projects. At the same time, the utilities changed the way they were funding their R&R or renewal replacement projects, and they increased the transfer from like $4 million a year from the general operating and utility we gradually increased it to 5, 6, and now it's $7 million. So the projects now that are being done in these upcoming years are cash-based for the most part from that transfer that's been done over the last few years. We do have. So the payoffs are 2021, 2037, and 2032. 21, that's the 2002 series. The 2012 series is paid off in 2037, which was a $43 million.
Go back to that
Okay.
first, when you pay off. When you were doing your analysis, did you bear in mind that that would be paid off and that with
Yes, that is built into those revenue analyses, is that's paid off, and then that debt payment would reduce in our overall budget. Yes, absolutely.
And each time we issue a bond, the financial advisor does what they call a smoothing out of your debt service. So they take the existing debt service and then the new issuance and they layer it so your debt service doesn't have spikes in it. It sort of stays level. The 2012 series pays off in 2037, and the 2016 series pays off in 2032.
Okay, you answered my question. I wanted to make sure that, when he came on, I know we needed to get projects done, I'm not faulting that, but when he came on, it was just like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and I'm like, well,
He actually walked in at a very good time because we had already issued the bond, and we
Right.
actually had cash in the bank to do the projects. So he actually came in right as we were issuing that bond issuance.
Well,
Yeah, it was just good. It was just the timing.
It was really good.
Well, I'm glad you let me know it was the timing, because I thought you was coming in and spending money like it was your own money, sir, and I really had some problems. Okay.
Carl, I got a couple of questions. When you first came on, you were very aggressive as far as wanting to supply water to everyone within a 50-mile radius. Very aggressive.
I don't know if that's cool, but yes,
and,
I got.
and actually taking over some of the water plants themselves over there on the Intracoastal. I know you took over Royal Manor. Have those acquisitions, have they paid off as far as
Yes, now, the only one that we've actually finalized was Royal Manor, and that paid for itself within a month. I mean, that was making money for the city within a month
Okay.
or a month and a half.
Did we go after Malapan and Hypoluxo also?
Yes, so where we are right now, and that's a great question. So we're right now, with Hypoluxo, we're negotiating a new interlocal agreement to pick up all of the customers in Hypoluxo that are right now on Manalapan water, because Hypoluxo is in our service area. They're going to see a substantial rate decrease, those 500 customers, because you see, and for us, it's money coming back into our system
Okay,
and making money.
just to stop you,
So
Chris.
it's a profit margin for us, even though our rates are low.
Okay, so that decrease that they're going to see, could we share some of that decrease and put it on our end as far as lowering our costs?
That's hard. I'm not sure how we would do that. That's a great question. I can look into it. When we were looking at the Manalapan purchase, where we were going to buy the entire utility, that's what we were looking at. But since we're not buying this utility, it's already in our service area. Hypoluxo is going to end their contract with Manalapan and sign a contract with Boynton. So
When
it's a
is
little
that?
bit tougher to find a way.
Oh,
But one of the things it does do for us, which is really good for our customers, is it's going to give us a eastern loop of water that we don't have right now, which is going to improve our service in that whole northeastern area. So there are some benefits to us, but it also brings in, I don't know, I'll say this probably, it's okay. The customers we're bringing in are our bigger customers. They use a lot of water.
okay.
So that's good for us.
I just hate to see Malapan paying less than we do for.
No, they're not.
Okay,
Manalapan will not. Just
Okay.
Hypoluxo.
And another thing is, you said your energy cost is a big part of your debt there. What are we doing? And I know I gave you some out-of-the-box literature about putting turbines inside the water, the moving water pipes to move the water to generate electricity. What are you doing to lower energy costs? Are you thinking green, or are you doing some out-of-the-box thinking as far as lowering those energy costs?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. The first one is when we replace new pumps and new energy things, this is very traditional, we pick the most energy efficient pumps that are on the market, so that's going to lower your costs. That's the traditional way of doing it. We're right now are engaging a group to come in and do, and it's very inexpensive, but do a quick little study and calculator to allow us to look at things like fuel cells, solar, wind, and those kind of power at our plants and our sites. And what is the value? So what is the cost of putting it in, and what is the value you get over a 20-year cycle on energy savings? So we're trying to create that because we do think there's some energy savings definitely there. The third thing we're looking at is microturbines using natural gas. There's a little bit of a challenge with that with FP&L. They don't like you doing that, so but we're definitely not going to write that out because that could substantially decrease our energy cost if we created our own. These are big ideas and out-of-the-box ideas.
Is that a fuel cell that you just mentioned?
Fuel cells run off of natural gas, and so do microgenerators. So we're looking at that technology. Again, you're right, that's way outside the box. But if we can look at a long-term 20-year period and it saves us energy costs, it's worthwhile doing because it is green energy. So
Okay, and my last question is the reuse of the stormwater. You say you're going to go up on the rates 50 cents, and eventually $1. We haven't reached that mandated numbers, gallonage that we sold yet. We haven't sold that yet. Is it wise to have those increases now or continue to take a little bit of a loss and try to promote the sale of that water?
sale of stormwater?
Yeah, the reuse water, I'm sorry.
The reuse water. No, the reuse I'm not proposing increasing until we maximize. Until reuse becomes a commodity where there's not enough of, it's hard to go up on. Now, stormwater is a little bit different because that's what you asked for. That's the one we're recommending.
Is that the one you
increase.
talked about going up?
Yeah, that's the one
Okay,
and that's handling all of our flooding issues and all of our. We are seeing influence, regardless of what the reasons are. We're seeing influence from climate change, from sea level rise in Boynton, and that is costing us more money in stormwater. We're having to put in different kind of drainage systems. We're having to upgrade drainage systems. So. All of our stormwater operates under what we call an MS4 permit. It's a federal permit to control our stormwater. We're required to do these things. We're required to keep the flooding down. I mean, nobody likes their houses flooded. Nobody likes the streets flooded. And right now, it's costing us our stormwater budget just to keep up is about $6.5 million a year, and we're raising about $3.5 million with the fees.
Okay.
So that's why we're recommending the increase.
And my last question is that with this climate change and the rising of the sea and everything, and I think Commissioner McCray touched on a little bit, is the intrusion of salt water into our wells. I know that we're digging a new well, we had dug a new well. Is this going to be an issue in the foreseeable future? Obviously, in our lifetime, I would imagine being a real big issue.
It's an issue. It's absolutely an issue, and it will be an issue. We're planning for it, which is one of the reasons we did the big project, pushing our water out west. Yeah, so we're pulling less out, which helps keep that fresh water that keeps the salt water out. We're looking at a couple other things, too. I'll bring up the wastewater plant, even though that's not in this budget discussion directly. You know, in the wastewater plant, we're looking at putting in those shallow injection wells on the ridge, which we can put down recycled water in, which will also act as that saltwater barrier. So these are all the things. We don't look just out 5 years in the utility. We're looking out 50 years. We have to, because everything we put in the ground lasts 50 years. So we have to look out, what do we need in the ground to last the 50 years to make sure that our customers have the water they need to drink that's safe and clean. So to answer your question is, it does impact it. We're aware of those impacts. We're doing everything we can. One of the reasons why we're looking at Hunter's Run, that's a great example of trying to get their irrigation off of their wells and onto reuse, because their wells are drawing from our groundwater, which does contribute to that. So if we can get them off and get them on reuse, that's part of saving that water source. So does that answer your question? I
Yes,
hope?
it did. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, I get passionate about it. Get off sometimes.
So my questions are, what did we do last year regarding raising rates?
We didn't raise rates. The last 2 years, we did not touch rates.
Okay, so that's easy. And the other thing, I guess, because we're matching rates to price indexes, do we plan on having caps in case something goes up?
Oh, absolutely, and we're doing it 1 year at a time. So absolutely, I think we have to have caps. We would. I've been doing this for a long time and working on rates, and in my experience says is you need to keep the rate increases 3% or less each year. That's why you need to do it routinely, because when you get these big increases where somebody bills starts at $50 and goes to $90, that's a huge impact. $50 to $51, people can build into their budget. So I really do believe we need to be very careful how we raise rates. We need to stick within what these other increases are. So the theory is if wages are going up, then people's income's going up, so we raise it by the same level, so everybody keeps even. And the vice versa is true too. In the recession, in 2009, 2010, the CPI was negative. With this kind of system, we would be lowering rates to help those people out because our costs would be coming down. So that's the advantage of looking at rates from an index standpoint instead of just an overall percentage. So did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
The last is that solid waste charge is also on the same utility bill, if I'm not mistaken?
It is. It's on our monthly bill.
Okay. Can we do a better job of separating the two so that people know what is water and what is solid waste?
You know, that's a great question, because in the last 6 months, we never really thought of it, but the last 6 months I've probably had about 10 calls from customers saying, you know, our bill could be a little bit clearer what we pay. And I agree with that now that I'm looking. This is one of these things, if you don't look at it every day, you don't see it, but when somebody tells you and you look at it. So one of the things I've talked to Barb about is we want to redesign our bill a little bit to put better information on it. Like one of the things we don't put on our bill is how much water did you actually use. We put the dollar amount, we don't put how much you used. So those are some things we want to redesign our bill this year to start doing better. Solid waste is a good one. We need to separate out, really make it clear. This is your solid waste fee and with information on it. So I think we can do a better job in our bill. We want to redesign it. It's about time. We've had this bill for about 3 years, so it's time to redesign and add better information.
Do we need to put anything in the budget for the redesign?
No, it's that those kind of costs are included in the way we run a utility. It's part of our billing system, and we have money to cover those kind of costs.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the commission? Seeing none, yep.
Yeah, we just
one
wanted to see if there was
question.
some consensus, and then I guess we can do public.
Public comments? Please state your name and address for the record.
Mike Fitzpatrick, 175 Southwest 2nd Street. Listening to a comment by Joe Costello, I have two comments, or two questions. The first one is, for residents outside the city of Boynton Beach, don't they pay a surtax? Isn't there a charge more?
Yes, 25%.
25%, so citizens of Boynton aren't subsidizing anybody.
No.
My second question is deals with the Purple Pipe network and reclaimed water. there's condos along South Federal Highway who are very interested in getting it. Where's that stand in the program?
So the project that was in the budget that I talked about, there's $2 million in next year and then $2 million the following year. And that project is to take the line from where it is now on 23rd, Southeast 23rd, I can't remember the name of the other name of the road, and take it through all the way over to Federal Highway, up and down Federal Highway to pick up those HOAs, and then go under the Intracoastal and pick up what's the two golf courses over there?
Little Park.
St. Andrews.
St. Andrews and
Little Club. The Little Club.
the Little Club. That's it, St. Andrews and the Little Club. So the answer is yes. They're very interested, and we definitely want to connect them. Those are the HOAs I was talking about.
So that's happening this year?
That's starting this year, yes. It's about a 2-year project, so it's not 1 year.
You mentioned that you try to bundle things, so you do paving if you're going to tear it up. So if you're going to go down Federal Highway, you're going to have to trench it and then patch it.
So if we're going to go into Federal Highway, we have to do it before DOT is going to pave. DOT has a paving project on Federal Highway. We have to go in. We've looked at that. Right now, where we're going to put the lines is not within the right-of-way. That's a DOT road. They are actually, just so you all know, there is a paving project that is scheduled to start, Chris?
2019.
Yeah, 2019. I know we're in the process of negotiating with them to put some stuff in the road before they pave. So they'll pave that road. But you're right, when we go down roads, we generally mill them and resurface them.
Well, that was my question. I'm glad I was afraid Jeff Livergood dropped the ball and you didn't hear about the FDOT.
No, we know about it. It's on our schedule. We're working with them.
So my understanding is coming between Boynton Beach Boulevard and Gateway down to somewhere around George Bush Boulevard.
Yes, that sounds correct. Chris is shaking his head. He's been working with DOT.
All right, I'm just glad to see everybody's on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colin, so you said you're looking for consensus from
Just
the board?
consensus, that's it. To move forward or not with what we're recommending. We'll bring the ordinance back. We'll have to do an ordinance change in August, and then we'll bring the rate hearing back. We can do it the first meeting in September or the second meeting in September, and you'll be doing budget at both meetings. Correct? Yes.
All right, so I mean, personally, I'll say that I support your plan for the dollar and then the 50 cents for each of the following 2 years. I think that if we know for a fact that costs are going up and there's going to be a greater and greater stress placed on the reserves, that, you know, if we don't make this decision now, that we'll be putting a future commission in the exact position you just described, where they might be asked to raise rates by 20% or 25%, and at that point the residents suffer and that commission has to make that tough decision. So I personally support your plan for the $1 rate increase and then the 50 cents for the subsequent 2 years. Commissioner Casella? Commissioner McRae?
I'm going to agree, but I'm going to say that, you know, I don't care about nobody being put in a position if they clean up here, you know, when it is not either, you know, that's not my problem. My problem is now, you know, they have to invite the photo like we invite the photo. You know, we've been inviting a lot of photos, so I'm with it.
Vice Mayor?
I'm okay with the rate increases. I believe I asked you guys some information on our original minutes, so like to get that information before we move forward with the ordinances. So we talked about some of the costs that were associated with these and.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think you were asking about the costs associated with these, and yes, we're going to put together, when it comes to you, we will have a more detailed exactly where these dollars go.
I'd like to hear that. Thank you.
And same thing in the other issue too.
Yeah, just to have the capping rates so that we know that it's not going above a certain amount so it's within everyone's budget. And then I know that we've seen around the country what happens when certain municipalities do not fund their utilities correctly. It comes up to being a lot more expensive, just like as you were saying, it's a lot harder to find new water than to sell reused water. And so look forward to making sure our utility is strong as it goes along. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you. I think
That's it.
All right, so that concludes the budget presentations from the departments. You've heard from everyone. What's left is 2 resolutions that we ask you to consider for adoption. One is the proposed millage rate.
we even go there,
Okay.
I got some questions I didn't get clear from yesterday.
All right.
With the take-home cards, Gloria, you sent me that, but I have a question, like from this police department, you know, I need to know how many cars do we got on the thing tonight, you know, to buy 17 more new cars. How many take-home cars do they have, and as they, you know, do they need to take them home? I need to know from the chief, is there a new thing that he's trying to buy, because I spoke to him about in Fort Lauderdale, you know, that they have these things that they put up in the streets that, you know, deter crime. Is he planning on buying any of that? I need to know what is his purview, or is he planning on buying some things that not on this budget or in the budget somewhere that we have money for? And I'd like to hear from him, because tonight they're talking about this mirror wall, the wall. I want to know more about that, because we do need the wall here in this city. The wall is where they tap all the cameras up. Then they can like go in and like, you know, and say, okay, this is what's going on. Yeah.
The real-time crime center with the JAG
Crime
grant?
center with
Yes.
the JAG thing, okay,
Yep,
that's going to
staff
be
will be
coming up,
ready
but
to talk
I
about
need to
that.
know about, you know, I need to know, being a new kid on the block, I need to know, is there anything foreseen in this budget that we might have missed that he wants to implement here in this city? Number one, like the vehicles that they go and park and just, and nobody's in them sometime, but they have up, like saying the cameras are rolling. I'm just saying any new equipment that he sees that we need here in this city, because I know we need some here. I'd like to hear it from him before I even do anything to my resolutions. I need to find out, you know, from these departments, like, is there anything else that we're trying to buy that we don't know about?
Well, again, the chief's here now.
He's there.
He's been here a week, so in terms of how much time, I know, you know, he probably hasn't had a real chance to dive too deep into the budget.
Probably haven't, Lord, but he and I,
I'll
we
let him
discussed
know.
these things, but I'm
Okay.
just saying I need to know this, what he think would be beneficial here for this city, to do the things that he did in Fort Lauderdale, like they have these, the vehicle, you know, you're on 6th truck, the one that y'all go and park down. You know what I'm talking about. You have to explain it to you all. I'm not an officer,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I'm good though.
Good afternoon, Michael Gregory, Police Chief. Regarding the take-home vehicles, there's about 183 vehicles in the program. About 100 of those are unmarked. I do see value in that program. It is the same, very similar to the program they have in Fort Lauderdale. It's a benefit that many agencies today in law enforcement have, and it's used heavily for recruiting and trying to get the best candidates. Today's candidates do look to shop what benefits are available in what cities and what police departments, and having that same benefit that these other agencies in Palm Beach and Broward have puts us on a even playing field. With regard to the other items that are...
Excuse me, before you leave from there, how many miles are they allowed to drive a police vehicle home?
My recollection is the policy states 20 miles from the city.
20 miles from the city, and I see some of the officers flying past me in Fort Lauderdale. So I'm having some concerns. We'll discuss it later, but that's why I need to know what is the policy for this city, and I'm quite sure other people might be scared to say it, but they didn't see cars passing them, because I'd be going to work and I'm like, oh wow, there go Boynton. Go ahead with the next one. Okay.
With regard to the other items that are included in the budget for this fiscal year, I didn't see anything that I would object to. They certainly seem to be in line, particularly the items, the evening's agenda for the real-time crime center, the monitoring of the monitors for the center definitely will be needed, but there will be more that will need to be purchased in the future to continue to build that, and I think they're on the right path doing that in phases. It doesn't have to be done at one budget item all at one time. We can bring back more that will need to be added later on as they develop what the real path that needs to be on Boynton.
Okay, thank you. I just don't want you to come in and do like Colin, come in and spend all our money at one time, you know, and I have to tell you the same thing.
No, sir.
Okay.
No,
Thank
sir.
you.
I wouldn't dare.
Pretty good.
Tim, before you start again, is there any other questions from the commission? And then I'm going to open it up to public comments before we move forward with the resolutions.
I just want some clarification on the 2 take-home cars in Public Works for the individuals listed. Are these necessary expenses for take-home cars for these 2 individuals in Public Works?
So both of those we're working on. One of them is probably going to move to a car allowance, and the other one is retiring, and that we're going to change the way that job works, and the new job will not require. Both of those people right now are on call 24/7 because of the way we're organized. We're going to be changing that over the next 6 months, and I think both of those will go out. So we'll wind up, I think, in general government outside of public safety with 1 take-home, and that's a warehouse truck, which is needed for those emergencies after hours. So I think we're going to get down to just that outside of public safety.
I'm not going
Yeah, we've spent the last probably 2 years transitioning everybody out of mostly everybody, other than public safety, out of take-home cars. Because the fleet, it's a lot of cars to maintain. So we've moved them all to car allowances, most of them to have it. Obviously, my car is in my contract, that's handled separately with the commissioner directly.
I just got a quick question. Is everyone under the parameters that they have to live within X amount of miles, with the 20 miles or 25 miles of the city limits, even people who take home, I know, cruises or...
So I can answer from general government. We do check that. We have we don't have a lot of take-home vehicles. We have a lot of people on call, especially in utilities and public works. People are on call. That means they're on call for a week. They keep their vehicle for that week. We have GPS on those vehicles. We know where they go, and we do watch that. We have geofencing set up, so we know that they're not going outside the policy limits that are allowed for that vehicle. We have an employee, just to give you an example, we have an employee that is on call. He actually lives up in Jupiter, but when he's on call, he lives here in Boynton. He stays with a family member while he's on call because he can't drive the vehicle up there, and he's on call, and he's required to be on call. So that's what we do. So we do monitor it, and we make sure the employees are following it, and it works well for them. We haven't had any complaints. And getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's nice to be 5 minutes from where you're trying to go.
Is there any other questions from the commission? Seeing none, now we'll open it up to public comments. If there are any questions unanswered or you'd still like more information, please come up to the podium. State your name and address for the record. All right, seeing none, we all,
This is a question for our economic development director. Just wanted some clarification on this information that was given to us. Based on these grants from last year, we gave out $76,000 in economic development grants, but we're only allocating $54,000 for this year.
Yeah, so because the grants carry over, I mean, they just continue to roll, and it depends on when the permit is issued, so it's tied to permit. So while you say that we get $54,000 in a given year, it depends on when those grants the refunds are requested.
Okay, so that $54,000, that's including both commercial interior build-out and rent reimbursement?
Yes, it's the rent reimbursement and the interior build-out. Those are the only two. The $50,000 for the new one is not included. Is that your question?
No. My question is, we allocated we gave out $76,000 for a combination of the interior build-out with the rent reimbursement fiscal year 17-18. But in this fiscal year, we're only allocating $54,000. I just want clarification. That's correct?
Yeah, the 54 has been the same for the past couple of years,
Correct.
but there was a carry forward on the actual payout from the year prior. So the difference from the 76 to the 54, that amount was carried forward from the prior year.
Correct.
In terms of actual distribution.
Correct.
So it's going to reflect as a higher number, but the budget's been 54 for the, I don't know how long.
For years.
Okay, it's been quite a few
For years.
Okay, that clarifies
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
And that was to allow us to do a specific number of each grant. So that the 54 is an odd number, but it gets us so many rent reimbursements and so many interior build-out grants that we were able to find.
And you end up with just about maybe two a year or so. That's all it.
I see.
That's all it
Okay.
can fly.
Thank you.
One-on-one, but I asked the question yesterday, how much money have he went out and got, bringing it to the city? And I don't see that in this report because I haven't had time to look at it, but I would like to have that information, if he's supposed to be seeking grants or anything like that, getting funds to come into the city, how much has he obtained since he's been here? The mayor said something yesterday that we need variables, that we need things that we can measure what is going on. I need to know what is in place. Like the mayor, I'm just saying, we have a company a person that we really need to get I need to know what is really going on because right now I'm not satisfied.
Tim, would you like to begin?
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Jim in a minute. So the two resolutions that we're going to ask you to consider for adoption, one is the proposed millage rate that the city manager is recommending at 7.9. You will adopt a final millage rate in the month of September. Between now and September, you can reduce your millage rate. It is not recommended that you want to increase it in September because there is a notification by first-class mail that you don't want to get into. And then the second one is to set the preliminary fire assessment. So with that, I'll give it to Jim.
Yep. This is Resolution R18095, a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, adopting a proposed municipal millage rate for general operating budget purposes for fiscal year 2018-19, stating a rollback rate and setting forth the date, time, and place for the first public hearing and providing an effective date. Within the body of the resolution, it states that the proposed millage rate is 7.9000. The rollback rate is 7.4709. And the date of the first public hearing to consider the proposed millage rate and tentative budget is September 6, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. here at Intracoastal Park Clubhouse, 2240 North Federal Highway, Boynton Beach, Florida.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Resolution R18096, a resolution of the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, relating to the provision of fire rescue service facilities and programs in the City of Boynton Beach, Florida, describing the method of assessing fire rescue assessed costs against assessed property located within the City of Boynton Beach, directing the preparation of an assessment roll, authorizing the public hearing, and directing the provision of notice thereof, and providing an effective date. Within the body of this resolution is a notice of hearing to impose. The hearing date is September 11, 2018 at 6 o'clock p.m. here in the Intracoastal Park Clubhouse, 2240 North Federal Highway, Boynton Beach, Florida. Also within the body of the resolution is Exhibit E, which sets forth the estimated fire rescue assessment rate schedule.
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor state so by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Sure.
I will jump on my soapbox to commend the city manager along with her staff on this budget proposal that she's brought before the public this fiscal year, for the projected fiscal year. I believe that this was a tremendous task, an endeavor to allow for no increase in millage, no increase in fire assessment, and for the public to also see the fruits of their labor in terms of the Town Square project that's coming before us the next couple of months, already happening with the old high school already nearly done with its construction. So again, I just want to thank you for your diligence. I want to thank the staff for all the work and their commitment for everything that you guys have done. I'm proud to have voted in favor of this budget, and I believe the public should also commend the direction of the city and the direction that we're moving in, because again, when we're doing all these things and undertaking all these projects but still not raising any taxes on our residents, I believe that that's something to be commended for. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I'll sum it all up. I go ditto all of the city. That's what you just said.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing none, being adjourned.